Today, I had the distinct pleasure of talking with Max Elder, co-founder and CEO of Nowadays, a venture-backed food tech startup that makes plant-based meats with only a few simple ingredients and an unparalleled nutritious profile. Max has consulted across global food value chain on long-term strategy and innovation projects with seed companies, ingredient companies, CPG companies, foundations with a nutrition on ag focus. He's written for or been quoted in the New York Times, The Guardian, NPR, the World Economic Forum, Quartz, Forbes, Fast Company, and many others. You're in for a great treat as I talk with Max today about how they are disrupting the market, how they are committed to climate change, how they are committed to people's health, and especially the health of children. Stick around, you're in for a great treat.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
So, Max, I'm really impressed with your background. You've done a lot. You're a rather young man, and you are very, very accomplished. What do you attribute that to?
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Kathleen. I think I attribute it primarily to a lot of luck, a lot of privilege, a lot of good fortune, and quite frankly, some parents who gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted.
Nice. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Massachusetts, the North Shore of Massachusetts.
And how did you end up in San Francisco? Because your company Nowadays, which we're definitely going to talk about that, is located in San Francisco. How did you go from Massachusetts to the other side of the United States?
Yes, I moved out to California about 5 years ago, and I primarily moved here to get a job in the food system. So I moved out here to get some more experience, and I got a job out in Palo Alto at a nonprofit hybrid think tank creative consultancy called the Institute for the Future. I spent about 4.5 years there consulting across the global food value chain on long-term strategy and innovation projects. So I moved out to California, not just for the sunshine, but also for some good industry experience.
Wonderful. Well, I used to live in San Francisco. We had talked about that on our previous conversation. Grew up in San Jose, so I was in the South Bay, then lived in San Francisco, Sonoma County, Guerneville area, and then moved up to Utah. Then from there, I moved to Oregon. So I've kind of bounced around a little, but I tend to stay for periods of time, and I love San Francisco. I know it's changed a lot. And with your company Nowadays, tell us about the whole premise of Nowadays, because it actually is really kind of breaking the model and the mold of what unhealthy vegan food is about.
Yeah. Well, I love that you've been all over the place. I'm obsessed with the West Coast, and San Francisco will always hold a dear place in my heart. Come visit at any point in time. We started Nowadays in San Francisco with the belief that plant-based meats have a massive opportunity to positively impact human and planetary health. But we realized that there were some shortcomings with existing brands and product portfolios. And so we started the company to solve three things. We wanted to make delicious food that was also nutritious and was able to be affordable and broadly accessible for larger communities of folks. So right now, unfortunately, I think a lot of the category is filled with products that don't really deliver on the taste, texture, mouthfeel, the organoleptics that consumers are looking for. They certainly don't deliver on a very clear and differentiated health value proposition that the growing flexitarian segment clearly is asking for. And they're too damn expensive, which just limits their ability to capture mass market share.
Well, I know that with your product, they're nuggets. And so that really appeals to a younger audience. It also appeals to busy professionals. You've got 7 ingredients in the nuggets. What are those ingredients?
Yeah, so the nugget is the first product we launched. We launched with it primarily because nuggets are the perfect category for us. We're targeting processed, for lack of a better term, junk food. These are typically breaded and fried products. And the nugget is a sort of exemplary product category. People love nuggets. Nuggets have captured the American zeitgeist. There's deep nugget TikTok and Reddit threads. It's about an $8 billion category in the United States. And quite frankly, most people eat nuggets despite what they are, not because of what they are. which is perfect for a company to come in and disrupt. So we started with a nugget. Our nugget has 7 simple ingredients. In fact, it has the simplest and cleanest ingredient list and the best nutritional profile of any nugget on the market, plant or animal based. And it's made with water. Poultry, it turns out, chicken is about 75, 80% water. So we have filtered water in our product. Our protein comes from organic yellow peas. We use a whole wheat breading. Our flavor system is a mix of mushroom and yeast extracts. And then we have some maple fiber, which is a way to get a good quality source of fiber into the product as well. And then we par fry our nuggets slightly with a little bit of sunflower oil.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you talked about disrupting. Right now, we need a lot of disruption because there's total disruption in the world. And let's talk about the whole health issue that a lot of people are dealing with, and how a food like yours, being vegan and being healthy, is really what people need. Because there's a lot of companies coming on the bandwagon, like Burger King. I did a blog post around the fact that there are a lot of vegans who will not eat at Burger King because of the amount of murder that goes into their main food chain or food line. So what would be the benefit of somebody actually catering to a company like yours and buying from a company like yours? And that's the first part of the question. Second part of the question is, are you direct to consumer, or are you direct to, is it a wholesale product?
So great questions. Working backwards, we currently ship across the nation direct to consumer. We are scaling up our food service strategy right now. We're in restaurants in LA and New York and are building out a broader profile of branded menu items from coast to coast. And we are launching in retail this year. So we're headed to Whole Foods in Northern California and Southern Pacific. So we're very, very excited and very privileged to be launching with the marquee national organic retailer for this original nugget, and then have more products to come. And ultimately, we're an omni-channel brand, so we'll be available wherever people shop. And the benefits, I think, are massive. I mean, of course, we're hyper-focused on delivering a delightful eating experience for all of our customers, and doing so in a way that delivers on indulgent and nostalgic memories of these categories, like breaded and fried chicken products, but without any of the junk. We're largely concerned that the food system really requires Herculean efforts for everyday consumers to eat well. It's very, very hard to walk down a grocery store aisle or to go into a restaurant and understand and, quite frankly, just purchase affordably good food for people and for their kids. Right. So we've been hyper-focused on a really, really unparalleled macro profile. We've got a great amount of protein compared to calories and fat. We're a great source we have low net carbs, and we have a good source of fiber. So overall, we're just trying to make a product that is in an indulgent category. It's sort of junk food without the junk. Then, of course, beyond the health benefits, there are certainly a plethora of environmental benefits and benefits to animals. So the secondary and tertiary benefits of creating a product portfolio that really delivers on a health value proposition, but has environmental and social benefits as well, I think is sort of our North Star as a brand.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because actually just last evening, I saw something on the news that they were talking about the climate change and the climate crisis, and the leading item that they said people needed to incorporate in order to prevent further damage is a plant-based diet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just heard that, because a few years ago, you wouldn't have heard that. And it's interesting because a lot of people don't understand the whole impact that factory farming and animal-based products really do have on the environment. Now, before we get to that, I want to remind people that this is Kathleen Gage. And, I couldn't decide what show to put Max on. So, Max, you're going to go on both shows. I'm actually going to put you on the Plant-Based Eating for Health show, because this is obviously something that's important to you, is providing food that is healthy for people and vegan-based. And you also have very successfully launched this business, and it's growing in leaps and bounds. You're going to be in Whole Foods in the Pacific Northwest, I understand, which is great because, am I right?
We're launching in Northern California first, and the Pacific
Okay.
Northwest is our second target geography.
Perfect, because I do go to Whole Foods on occasion, not all the time, but I do, and I have a real good reason to go there. But let's talk about first of all, how do people reach you? What is your web address, and what's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, we want everyone to eat nowadays, so our social handles are all at Eat Nowadays, and our website is www.eatnowadays.com. We're everywhere online. We're very easy to find.
Okay. And how did you come up with the name Eat Nowadays or Nowadays?
Great question. Yeah. So Kathleen, I love this. We thought a lot about the brand name, and quite frankly, we wanted something that was very approachable and accessible for the mainstream. We're trying to build a plant-based meat company that not only caters to plant-based eaters, but also caters to a much broader market. And that means really having a very accessible, and honestly, I think nowadays is a bit folksy in its terminology. The name, I think, references that in the present we do something different than we do in the past, but is a non-judgmental acknowledgement of that. It feels like something that my parents or my grandparents might say. Nowadays has a evergreen presentism to it. Nowadays will be about the present today and in 5 years and in 10 years. So it has a sort of everlasting, I think, ethos. And between us, friends, I was largely not satisfied with a lot of the brand naming in this space. It's very male ego. It's very hubristic. The sort of impossibles and beyonds of the world feel very much not like what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus on a feeling, an emotion, a future vision where plant-based meats can be as good for people as they are for the planet and can be broadly adopted by consumers from coast to coast and around the world.
Wonderful. And let's talk about the environment, because anybody would have to be completely blind and have open eyes, but be blind to the fact that the environment is being destroyed day by day. The rainforests are being stripped away. We're having floods. We're having fires, massive fires. That's actually one of the things that we've done in our area, is go in and rescue animals that are in the fire ridden areas. But what do you see coming with the whole environment and the need for people to change, and what drives you in your business to really be a contributing factor to that solution?
Yeah, I think about this question every day. It's what keeps me up at night and what gets me out of bed in the morning. I think we're dealing with existential crises, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them certainly is our climate crisis. And this isn't an information problem anymore. We know that depending on who you ask, our global food system and related land use of that food system accounts for probably about a quarter of all global greenhouse gas emissions. I'm convinced that plant-based meat is the most scalable climate tech solution we possibly have today. And we absolutely all know that even when we work on decarbonization across industries, if we don't change what we put on our plates, we will never ever be able to stay under 2 degrees Celsius increase in global temperatures. And we certainly won't make any of our climate commitments that we need to. So when individuals are looking for ways that they can have an impact, every single day we make multiple decisions about what we put on our plates. And there's massive opportunity to have serious impact on land, on water, on GHG emissions by eating lower down in the food chain, by choosing an alternative meat product, by swapping out dairy with an alternative dairy product. And the good news is we no longer have to ask consumers to make massive trade-offs to do so.
Right.
In the past, it has been more burdensome, I think, for folks to have a more sustainable diet. And today, options are delicious, nutritious, and affordable, and on shelf. So
well, I'm curious, you mentioned that cost is one of the barriers to entry for a lot of people, and especially now with inflation the way it is, and that the dollar is not going as far as it used to as recently as a month ago. So how are you managing to keep costs down in production, and what is your whole production model?
Yeah, it's really hard, Kathleen, and to be very transparent with you, we're not there yet. We're young. And what we've been very thoughtful about is building a approach to product development and an approach to scaling manufacturing that can compete on cost. And by compete on cost, I really mean compete on commodity prices. And our first target sort of animal category to focus on is chicken. The commodity price of poultry in the United States, the last time I checked, was $1.45 a pound. Mm-hmm. Its industry, in fact, the entire animal agriculture industry in the United States has done a fantastic job over the past 50 plus years at externalizing costs and creating very, very, very cheap commodities. Mm-hmm. And we, as alternative meat companies, need to compete for consumers' wallets. And so we have to compete in artificially cheap markets. And that requires us to think very differently about how we produce and manufacture these products, how they're distributed. We have a very novel approach to product development and manufacturing. We're actually behind the brand. We have a proprietary approach to creating whole cuts of different clean label pieces of plant-based meat in a way that can very much compete on cost with poultry prices on commodity markets. So as we scale, we've been very intentional about being structurally sound in terms of our unit economics so that we can be able to capture a bigger market share than the entire alternative meat segment has been able to do so over the past 5 to 10 years, mainly because price, taste, and convenience have been limitations.
Right. Well, what a lot of people don't look at is they don't look at the short term compared to the long term, because short term, yes, it may be more cost effective in their mind to get animal-based products, but that is being subsidized. I mean, massively subsidized. But then you look at the long-term cost of healthcare and disease, and with the rate of obesity in children. I mean, it was unheard of when I was growing up. I'm a child of the 50s, and I actually was born in 54. And so in the 60s, all we did was ride our bike around, and when it was time to come home was when the sun went down. That was kind of like our cue that mom was looking for us. But we did a lot of physical activity where a lot of kids nowadays aren't. And it's scary because it's beyond scary. It's so frightening because they're getting the diseases that were isolated to adults at one point. So there's the short term, but the long term. So with that in mind, are you involved in any initiatives or any educational programs about raising awareness? What do you do in your marketing? Do you do cause marketing? What's the drive behind that?
Yeah. Well, I really love your point about short-term and long-term challenges. And you're absolutely right. This is true of human health. This is true of sustainability. This is true of everything, right? It turns out there's no such thing as a free lunch. And cheap food is maybe cheap for your paycheck this week, but ends up costing us a lot more money in the long term. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly there's a massive amount of work that needs to be done for companies like Nowadays to figure out how to actually just make these products cheaper. And then there's a bunch of consumer education work on understanding the long-term implications of different types of diets on human health and on planetary health. So we focus on our marketing, really trying to create simple heuristics for consumers to understand that our products actually are as good for them as they are for the planet, that this is a healthy option that they can put on their plates for dinner and be proud to feed their kids. And on the back of our pack, we have some environmental benefits. We compare farming chickens for meat with farming organic yellow peas for meat, talk about the land benefits, the water benefits, and the benefits on greenhouse gas emissions. And then I think we're pretty early on in our brand's identity. And Kathleen, one of the things that we're trying to do a lot of is listen to people, listen to our customers, mm-hmm. see what they find so amazing about our product, and then fold those into broader campaigns to help scale. So we have some hypotheses we're testing. We have a plethora of human and planetary health benefits. And the real question and sort of big priority for us as we grow over the coming years is figuring out how to tell this story to different audiences.
Wonderful. And I want to remind people, this is Kathleen Gage, and you're listening to both my podcast shows right now, Vegan Visibility and Plant-Based Eating for Health. And I have to tell you, it's because I really like you, Max. I like your energy. I like the fact that you have a blue-nosed pit bull that's a rescue. I mean, you're checking off all the boxes. You live in San Francisco, another check. And I'm talking with Max Elder from Nowadays, and it's eatnowadays.com, eatnowadays.com. And Max, where do you see the whole plant-based vegan movement going over the next few years? Because I think one of the greatest benefits of the pandemic and all the shutdowns is people had an opportunity to actually get educated on how unhealthy things are. I mean, I actually tested positive for COVID. What was it, about 6 weeks ago? Went through with flying colors. I did not have an issue at all. I was maybe a little bit tired, but for a week I didn't go running. I usually do 2 to 4 miles a day, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take a break. But other than that, it was like no big deal. I really think it's because I focus on my health, and I don't want to get arrogant around that, but I do believe that what we put into our body, in mind, body, and soul, it's going to come out on some level. So, where do you see things going?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm so glad to hear that you didn't struggle too much with COVID-19. I know that it's a significant challenge for lots of folks. And of course, we can't forget, right, that the pandemic very much is linked to what we put on our plates every day. I think about a year into COVID-19, the UN released a global report on the 7 major drivers of pandemics. The climate crisis was somewhere at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. Number 1 was increased global demand for animal-based protein as a major driver of global pandemics. And number 2 was an increased intensification of agricultural production around the world. Your diet impacts your ability to stay happy and healthy. And our diets globally also create the conditions for these kinds of zoonotic diseases to spread. So we very much see ourselves at the epicenter of a problem and a solution set. I think that the plant-based category overall has a lot of work to do over the next 5 to 10 years. And I don't know where it's all going to turn out. I spent enough time studying the future to know that there's no answer. But I have a couple of scenarios. The one thing that we think very strongly about is how to make these products more accessible to more people. And that means not just delivering a health value proposition that the growing flexitarian segment is looking for at an affordable price for delicious products that deliver joyous eating experiences. But I think it also means embodying an ethos of simplicity. One of the challenges that I'm largely concerned with is that the entire space is getting very complex. I live, breathe, and eat this stuff every day. I study it. This is my job and my passion. And I don't understand what is going on in this space where companies are branding their own proteins. Companies are using synthetic biology production platforms. Companies are creating blended products. And over the next 5 to 10 years, I think everyday consumers are going to be a bit lost on how to navigate some of these complexities. What is this protein? Where did it come from? How is it produced? What does it mean if I eat it? Right. And so I think that one of the core design principles is actually a simple communication principle. Like simplicity is really important here. That's why we lead with this product's made from 7 simple ingredients your kids can pronounce. This product is made with organic yellow peas. You know what peas are. So figuring out how to lower the barrier to adoption by making these products very familiar and intuitive, I think, will be a key to unlocking the mass market.
Well, and I love on your website, you've got some video of some kids. And I think that's just so brilliant because, the out of the mouth of babes, and they will tell the truth, and they will tell you this is a great product to eat, or this is not, and not so much in what the ingredients are. How does it taste? And they're going to let you know. But I think children are becoming much more aware of the cruelty to animals and their contribution to the environment. So, Max, I have to say, this has been delightful. I would love to have you back. I feel like I'm Ashley Banfield right now. This has been great, and I would love to have you back. You're going to come back, aren't you? And I just love her show. And, so I'm going to model a few of her strategies. But, Max, in closing, what are your final thoughts for people?
Well, I think everyone who listens to this show likely is already doing a lot of amazing work with aligning their values with what they put on their plates and their ethos. So I think first, just thank you all for making the world a kinder place. I feel very, very hopeful and optimistic about the future, particularly because a lot of innovators are in this space trying to get animals out of food supply chains. I think we need to think differently about how we've been doing that over the past 5 to 10 years. And just appreciate everyone's work, including yours, Kathleen, for helping amplify these kinds of businesses, these kinds of entrepreneurs, and really folks who are trying to make the future more healthy, humane, and sustainable. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been delightful. And I encourage everybody to go out, check eatnowadays.com. That's eatnowadays.com. You're going to love the videos on the site. They're adorable and they're really an eye opener. So with that, Max, it's been delightful. And I encourage everybody to go out, be very conscious of what you put at the end of your fork, what you put in your mouth, and the life that you live. Be conscious, be kind, be compassionate. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.